Good morning and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims! Yes, once again we'll be breaking this thing down verse by verse into factual, logical statements in English so we can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by his book, and more importantly, how does this affect us non-believers in our life today. So before I start, as I always do, I'm going to tell you now, if you have any doubts as to the things I will say or my factual accuracy, please, first, buy and read one of these. Once you've done that, you'll realise every word I'm going to say now is 100% true to the word of Allah and what Muslims believe today. So, if you've been keeping up with the series and you saw the absolute dog's dinner I made out of the last two, I accidentally uploaded one twice, missed one, then I had to do a recap. But the long and short of it is we were introduced to Imran, who is the second foremost prophet of Islam, and his little family system, which is him being a slave of Allah, him enslaving his wife's womb, and the baby being sold off as a wife after just a single day of life. So that's where we are now, that's where we're going to continue from. So let's get started. 39. Zachariah, whilst praying in his tent, did hear the angels call, saying, Yahweh's blessings upon you. Allah's word be truth to you. Be you faithful in ye righteous and godly company. This was said to confirm Allah's blessings. End of verse. So, the first ever mention of Yahweh, the God of Israel, in the Quran by Allah in his own words. So let's figure out what is this madness? What is going on? Let's figure it out. So Zachariah is the guy who has the one-day-old baby as a wife. You know, Mary, the evil, sinful baby girl who how dare she not be born as a man? Allah is so angry at her. She's the product of evil and sin, so she gets given away as a wife. And Allah on the way out says, I will bless this child. She will be a good plant pot. That's her blessing. So off she goes with her husband Zachariah, who I think is like 50 or 60. He's quite old. She's one day old. He's 50, 60. And that's Zachariah. So Zachariah is praying in his tent. Oh, look, he's doing all that shit, right? So he's doing that. And then he did hear the angels. And these angels appear to him and they're calling to him. And they go, Zachariah, Yahweh's blessings upon you. Now, Yahweh, as you know, is the God of Israel. And although Allah has previously said, A, there's no gods at all. B, he's the only God. C, he's the living man, so there isn't any gods. Now, his angels, not him, his angels who are supposed to be on his side, are giving Zachariah and Mary Yahweh's blessing. Remember, that will be very important for what happens later on. So, Yahweh's blessings be upon you. Allah's word be truth is what these angels are saying. Then the last thing they say is, be ye faithful in ye righteous and godly company. So what that means, if we break this down, the angels of Allah is what word? It doesn't actually say that, it just says the angels. The angels are saying to Zachariah, be faithful in righteous and godly company. So what that means is be good like the other old prophets were. You know, Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jacob, Ishmael. These guys, be like those. And the reason they're saying this is to confirm Allah's blessings upon him. So I think what's happening here is Yahweh isn't actually in Quran, right? So what I'm thinking is that shouldn't be in there. But what's happened is whoever was copying from the Torah and the Gospels to put in the Quran, because remember, this is a much newer book. The Quran of the Muslims is a forgery of the older books. We know that from factual sources. So I think what's happened here is when they were copying parts out of older, better testaments and Gospels, they've accidentally forgotten to change this name, because what this should say is Allah's blessings upon you, Allah's word is truth. But it doesn't say that. It specifically says, and the angels say, Yahweh's blessing be upon you, Zachariah. So we know that. There's a mistake in here. As far as I'm concerned, Muslims will cut my head off and tell you it's not a mistake. They definitely meant to mention Yahweh, despite telling you that he's not real and he's definitely not God. But anyway, that's what happens. So Zachariah gets his blessing. Yahweh's blessing be upon you. Allah's word is truth, despite Yahweh's giving you his blessing. And the reason that you're being told this is so that you behave as a good prophet in keeping with you having a blessing of a baby. Then we move on. Number 40. He saith, so Zachariah is saying back to the angels now. He saith, how shall it be that I become a father? For I am old and my wife is barren. Thusly so, Allah can most easily accomplish any feat, was their answer. End of verse. So, if we break this down, this has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever read so far in this whole book of stupidity. A high accolade, I know, but let's carry on. He saith, Zachariah saith to the angels who appeared to him, how shall it be that I become a father? For I am old, which is true, and my wife is barren, which, how do you know that? She's literally 1 day old. We just went through the bit about Imran literally a minute ago on the last episode. Mary is his wife. So Zachariah is 50, 60 years old. Mary is 1 day old. How do you even know she's barren? She's 1 day old, and the first thing that happened to her is Allah said to her mother, you're sinful for having a daughter, not a son, but I'll bless you both and I'll make Mary, the baby, the 1 day old baby, blessed with lots of sons. So she isn't barren, unless Allah's blessing was a lie, because he specifically said she was going to be blessed with lots of sons. Or maybe this has been played with, like I said in the last one, this is a corrupt Quran scripture. This isn't what it should say. Someone, i.e. Imran, for his own power and good back in the day, has edited this down and there's bits missing. So between yesterday, Zachariah marrying Mary, the 1 day old baby, then being told Mary's going to be blessed, between then and now, which is literally the next verse along, we are to believe that Mary is no longer a 1 day old baby. Now she's like 8, you know, whatever the minimum age is for Muslims to get people pregnant. So even though it's not expressly described in the Quran of the Muslims, Allah hasn't told us this. I am having to make sense of it for you by saying, look, you can't have a baby that's 1 day old and say that my wife is barren, you know, if it's a 1 day old baby. You just can't. How would you ever know that? But anyway, that's what it says. I didn't write it. Allah did. Allah knows what he's talking about in the words of Allah if you ask him. But not according to me, so we'll carry on. So, how shall it be that I become a father? For I am old and my wife is barren. And the angels say back, thusly so, Allah can most easily accomplish any feat. So, I think what's happening here, this is a copy of the Moses story. In the Torah, Moses does this exact thing, although his wife Sarah, or Sarai she's called, they're both old. Abraham and Sarai are both like 70 years old at the beginning of the Moses story, before they have any sons and do all that stuff. And Moses says to God, we would love to have a son. You know, we've done everything in our life, but we've never had a son. And God says to Moses, if you go and set up Israel, you know, if you go and do the pre-work to set up who is going to set up Israel, your son Jacob, if you do that, I will bless you with a son. And Moses goes, how's that going to work? My wife is like 1 million years old. We've never had any kids. Like, how? And God says, I can do anything easily. Do you think I can't make one baby? And he's like friendly. You know, he's being nice to Moses. He's having a joke with him, almost, and saying, I'm God. Do you think I can't make one baby? And Moses is like, cool, okay, I'm reassured now, and goes and does his mission. So that's where this is taken from. But now it's Zachariah instead of Moses, and instead of Sarai, it's the 1 day old Mary. So anyway, the angels say, Allah can accomplish any feat, which is ripped off from the Torah, and that's the end of that verse. So we move on. 41. He said then, as in... Zachariah, he said then, O Lord, give me a sign to defeat thy doubt, that I may see it for myself. And the angel said, thy sign will be of you that you observe a 3 days silence, speaketh not and communicate only with hand signals, then praise your Lord holy twice, glorifying him both in the morning and the night. End of verse. So if we break it down, although Zachariah has just been blessed, and he's got his 1 day old wife Mary, even though he's seen the angels, that was just described in the last verse. Zachariah's in his tent praying, oh, Akbar, doing all that holy shit. Angels appear to him and say, you will be blessed and you will have a baby. Yahweh's blessing is upon you, is exactly what is said in quotes by the angels. But despite this happening, Zachariah has no faith. He says, O Lord, give me a sign to defeat thy doubts. As in, he's saying, I don't believe you. I don't believe your angels, and I don't believe that Allah's word is the truth. I don't believe Yahweh's blessing is real. He thinks he's having a hallucination or something. And the angels say to him, the sign that this is going to really happen isn't a sign we're going to give you, Zachariah. You are going to have to do something for us to get the sign. And the thing you're going to have to do is a 3 day silence, communicating only with your hands, doing this, and not speaking. And then after that, praise your Lord holy twice. Once in the morning, once at night, then the next day once in the morning, once at night, and then you will have your sign. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm asking God for a sign, I want God to give me a sign. I don't want to have to do something for God to give him a sign that I am faithful. My own experience of Christ is when I asked him for signs when I was in disbelief, he gave me pretty obvious, miraculous signs that broke the laws of physics, which could not have been described any other way. And even though the first one, the first two, the first three, I was thinking, this is crazy, I must be seeing things here. He continually gave me signs and then appeared to me, and that is how I knew this guy's legit. This is actually Jesus Christ our Lord. And that's how I became a Christian. But anyway, that's not what's happening to Zechariah here. Zechariah here is doing the same thing I did. He's saying, please, O Lord, give me a sign so I can have my doubts quelled. But instead of giving him a sign, the angels are going, no, Zechariah, we don't want to give you a sign. You have to do 3 days silence. And if you get through it, then praise your Lord a couple of times for 2 days in a row. That will be your sign. So even though it doesn't make any sense, having done a 3-day silence is not going to be a sign of anything holy. It's just a sign that he can do 3 days without words, without talking. That's what he's asked to do, and so he does. And then in the next line, 42, the angels speak to Mary, the 1-day-old baby. So we're going to assume, even though it's not expressly written, that Mary is no longer a 1-day-old baby. She is now, let's be generous, she's 10. She's 10 years old, Mary, right? So the angels speak to 10-year-old Mary. Behold, Allah hath chosen thee above all women of all nations to be purified and bear a blessing for the Lord, a glorious holy son. End of verse. Now, you would have spotted by now, I think, what is going on here. Mary, son of Aaron, which is the Mary they're talking about here, and Zechariah, brother of Moses, the Zechariah they're talking about here, these two characters, although they aren't actually the parents of Jesus Christ in the Gospels or in the Torah, they're not mentioned as having that blessing prophesied for them. What we are supposed to believe here, ladies, gents and Pikachus, is that Mary, sister of Aaron, and Zechariah, they're going to have a holy son, and it's going to be Jesus. It's going to be Christ. That's what they're building up to here, because I know, having read the Torah, the Old Testament, and the Gospels, they've ripped this right off from there. So that's why the angels are speaking to Mary and saying, behold, Allah hath chosen you above all women of all nations. That's how we know it's going to be Jesus. Because not only have you been chosen for a blessing, O Mary, 10-year-old baby, you are being chosen above all women in all nations to be purified and receive a blessing from the Lord, this holy son, who is going to be the Messiah. That's what they're telling us here. 43. Worship your Lord, O Mary, prostrate yourself in prayer and bow down to devoutly worship, then say not why. End of verse. I feel like this could have been added to the previous verse. It's not very well written. Allah hasn't got very good literacy skills, doesn't know many words. But what I think is happening here, this is all in quotes, that last bit. So in quotes, this is the angels talking to Mary. Worship your Lord, O Mary, prostrate yourself in prayer and bow down worshipfully. So the angels are saying, Mary, 10-year-old girl Mary, you're now going to get pregnant. So you have to bow down, worship as much as you can before the baby comes, because the baby's going to be this holy, Allah's baby. It's not going to be your baby. That's what this means. 44. Revealed only now. To you shall be Allah's inspired news of a good happening for all people in all nations. Thou prophet was not with them when they decided who would own the greatest beast of service, and who was charged to control Mary's household. Nor when they did dispute this, but Allah knows all things. End of verse. So, breaking this one down, we're getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty details of how Jesus is about to be born in the words of Allah. Bearing in mind this is actually written after Jesus has already died, what is being said here is it's being revealed only now, i.e. any other previous accounts of Jesus we're now saying are false, in the words of Allah. But Mary, 10-year-old Mary, you shall be inspired by Allah's news of a good happening for all people. So this is literally Allah rewording the good news of the Gospels. That's literally what is said, what is directly being said here. You shall be Allah's inspired news of a good happening for all people in all nations. News of a good happening is the good news from the Bible. our Gospels, right? Good News Bible, that's what it's called, the Good News of Christ, the good message. So Allah's now taking credit for the whole Gospel thing, despite that this is 1500 years after it's been prophesied already and started happening, and Jesus has already died and gone to heaven. But anyway, that's what they're saying to Mary. You're going to be Allah's inspired news of a good happening for all people. Thou prophet was not with them when they decided who would control the greatest beast of burden. So I think what they're saying here, the greatest beast of burden is Mary. Right? Because she's a beast of burden, because she's burdened with the holy blessing of having Jesus for Allah. And it literally says beast of burden. I'm not even making that up. So if we break this down, revealed only now, i.e. the previous accounts are false, you, Mary, are going to be inspired with Allah's good news. It's not going to be Christ's good news. It's going to be Allah's good news. And when this was decided, nobody was there. So there's no witnesses to this happening. God just secretly did it on his own, which means anyone who's spoken previously about Jesus or Mary, the real Mary, that was obviously wrong. And then he finishes off by saying, and they did dispute this. So Allah knows, as soon as he says Mary, sister of Aaron, and Zachariah are going to have this baby Jesus, fucking everybody's going to argue with it, because it's clearly wrong, and Jesus is already born, lived, died, gone to heaven, done all the miracles. People know this. But Allah knows all things is how he finishes the verse. So he's clearly saying, forget all that past stuff. Even though he wrote the Torah and the Gospels in his own words, gave it to the Jews and Christians so they could come to him. Now he's saying all that's bullshit. That's wrong. His book that he gave them, the Gospels, is wrong. The Torah prophesizing the Gospels is wrong. That's all nonsense. Nobody was there to see that happen anyway, so there wasn't any witnesses. Allah's your witness to himself. And the last thing he says is, Allah knows. So what that means is, O Muslims, don't have any doubts about this. Everything I'm telling you from before is wrong. Now this is the new good news. This is the New Testament of Allah. You see what he's done there? The New fucking Testament of Allah is this. And that brings us to our last verse, 45. O Mary, thy blessing upon you shall be the seeding of a son to who you shall be, known as Jesus Christ, who shall stand over and above all men. He shall be nearest to all, to Allah, a holy preacher indeed. End of verse, end of reading. So we get to the juicy bit at last. So, this is still Allah talking to Mary while she's prostrating to Allah. Oh, thank you, Allah, for giving me this holy baby, even though I'm 10 and I don't understand. Anyway, that's what's happening. And she's actually 1 day old. I've made her 10 to facilitate this making any sort of sense. Right, remember, she's actually only 1 day old in the story. I had to make her roll forward in time 10 years so that it wouldn't be absolutely just not even possible. So, what Allah's angels are telling Mary, O Mary, thy blessing upon you, like Allah's going to bless you, Mary, now, it shall be sending of a son to you, who shall be known as Jesus the Christ. So, even though this is written way after Christ has already died, gone to heaven, the Gospels have now been written, this is way beyond that, we are supposed to believe, in Allah's own words, that Mary, son of Aaron, who is a completely different Mary, in a completely different time, as a 1-year-old baby who we're going to make 10, because it just is disgusting otherwise, it is disgusting anyway, we're going to make her and Zachariah, who never actually was married to a person called Mary, we're going to make them the parents of Jesus Christ, son of Allah, and that's going to be the New Testament of Allah. So in the breakdown, what Allah is doing here in Book 2, Surah 2, via Imran and his family, who remember are above all people, they were only above all people for literally 5 minutes. Now, Jesus Christ, son of Mary, is going to be above them. So once again, we get more conclusive evidence. O Allah, wise and graceful and merciful and peaceful Allah, everything you say turns out to be a lie. You told out Imran, literally in the last episode, Allah, remember, you said Imran and his family will be above all people. Now you're saying Jesus Christ is going to be the holiest man on earth. That's what it says. If you don't believe me, buy it and read it. You'll find out that's exactly what it says. So then he finishes off by saying, Jesus Christ shall stand over and above all men, and shall be the nearest of all to Allah, a holy preacher. And as we know, Jesus Christ was a holy preacher. Jesus Christ was the nearest to God. But the reason Allah is saying this now is because remember he mentioned Yahweh at the beginning. Yahweh's blessings was upon Mary. So even though Yahweh was the one that blessed Mary with the son, So at the beginning of the verse, you're supposed to think, this is the Son of God, as in Yahweh, Jesus. By the end of it, it's actually Allah's child. So Allah is again inserting himself in a place he was not invited and does not need to be in the story of Yahweh and his son, who is Jesus Christ. And the reason he's doing this under the book of Imran is so that Muslims think Allah is God. When anyone else says God of the Jews, God of the Christians, in future when Allah is mentioned as a word which means God, this verse, ladies and gents and Pikachus, this verse here is the proof for Arabs that Allah is in fact God and Yahweh is just an angel. That's what they're saying here. They're saying the blessings of Yahweh upon Mary and Zachariah. He is an angel now. They're saying Yahweh isn't God. Yahweh is one of Allah's angels. And actually Allah is God who Jesus Christ is the son of. You see what they're doing there? So they've reversed it, because as far as I'm concerned, Allah is Satan, who is one of the angels of Yahweh. And Jesus Christ is the son of Yahweh, born to defeat Satan. But Allah has reversed it, reversed it if you like. And now he's saying Yahweh, who is God, is one of his angels. And Jesus Christ is going to be his son. And we know this because even though there was no witnesses, he said, nobody was here to dispute this or see this. I put them in charge, in control of Mary's household. So what Allah is saying here is the angels he sent are in control of Mary. She's the beast of burden who is above all, the woman who is above all women of all nations. And the child Jesus Christ who's going to be born is above all men and is the holiest man alive. But that doesn't matter because Allah. That's literally what it says. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. And so, if you would like to hear more about the continuing story of Jesus Christ, Son of Allah, please make Yahweh back to my channel at 4:15 this evening, where I'll be continuing Without Lies, Islam Dies. Until then, have a great day, God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.